Nobody expects collapse to begin with silence, but it usually does. A low, almost unnoticeable hum disappears, replaced by the kind of stillness that makes your skin tighten. The power grid fails first. Traffic lights freeze in the middle of the intersection. Refrigerators flicker, then die. People stare at their phones, hoping the icons will react, but the signal bar is nothing but a hollow skeleton at the top of the screen. In the first 10 minutes, the world feels confused, not yet afraid. Elevators stop between floors. Cars roll to the roadside as modern engines, reliant on electronics, give up. You're standing in a building lobby, and the air suddenly feels thinner, colder. It isn't the temperature, it's the absence of the hum of civilization. This is the moment when a cheap survival kit becomes the difference between waiting blindly and acting with intention. Not a military-grade $1,000 setup, just the basic tools most people overlook. A flashlight with spare batteries, a compact water filter, a whistle, a small first aid pouch, a fire starting tool, a folded poncho, duct tape, a cutting tool that isn't decorative. Most people around you will improvise using panic and denial. You don't. You unzip the small nylon bag you bought months ago, the one you barely gave attention to. The first thing you learn about collapse is that illumination equals control. You switch on your flashlight, not for drama, but because shadows become dangerous when systems fail. Stairs, hallways, empty corridors, all of them turn into obstacles once darkness settles in. Your kit doesn't make you invincible. It makes you mobile. It lets you leave before crowd psychology deteriorates. The cheap poncho becomes your barrier against sudden cold drafts when heating systems die. The whistle gives you a way to signal for help without screaming yourself hoarse. The small knife is less a weapon, more a tool for prying open stuck doors or cutting through tangled straps. 10 minutes into collapse, you realize something simple and brutal. Civilization fails fast. Preparedness doesn't need to be expensive, it just needs to exist. And now, with the building dark and the city shifting into something unrecognizable, you head toward the stairwell. This is where survival begins. The stairwell feels colder than the lobby. Without power, ventilation stops, leaving the air stale. Each step downward is a reminder of how dependent people were on artificial light. You move slowly, flashlight cutting through the darkness. Behind you, voices rise, tense, uncertain. Someone bangs on a locked door. Someone else yells at their phone as if anger can restore the signal. You continue your descent, one floor at a time, following a rule you once read in a forgotten survival manual. In the first hour, distance equals safety. Crowds gather near exits. Crowds panic. Crowds make mistakes. Your cheap nylon survival bag bounces lightly against your leg. Inside it, the essentials stay quiet, waiting. When you push through the building's exit, daylight feels unreal. The street is frozen mid-motion. Cars sit abandoned at odd angles. People wander with uncertain steps, like they're waking from anesthesia. The silence of a dead grid is louder outside. No engines. No air conditioning units. No buzzing power lines. Just the wind moving dust across asphalt. Your first objective is simple: information. Without it, you're just guessing. But information requires movement, and movement requires resources. You check your kit. A small notebook. A pencil. Tools that feel primitive, but in a world losing its digital memory, they matter again. You head toward the main avenue, not because it's safer, but because it's wider. Wide spaces give you more visibility, fewer blind spots. Collapse turns narrow alleys into traps. As you walk, you see the first sign of what's coming. A small grocery store, doors open, lights off. People inside arguing over who gets the last bottle of water. The shelves already look wounded, half full, chaotic. You don't join them. Your kit includes a compact water filter, one of the cheapest on the market. While others fight for bottled water, you already have a long-term plan. Rivers, park fountains, rooftop tanks. Any source becomes viable once filtered. The first hour teaches a harsh truth. Survival belongs to those who act before panic matures. You tighten the straps of your bag and continue walking. The city is unraveling, thread by thread. By the time evening approaches, the temperature drops noticeably. Without electricity, buildings lose heat fast. You feel it even through your clothes, but your cheap emergency poncho cuts the wind surprisingly well. Preparedness isn't about glamour, it's about function. You find temporary refuge in a half-abandoned bus station. The structure offers overhead cover, broken benches, and a view of multiple exits. That's crucial. The first night after collapse is always the most dangerous. People are still clinging to normal behavior, but fear has begun to settle behind their eyes. You take out your small first aid pouch, not because you're injured, but to check what you have. A few antiseptic wipes, basic bandages, painkillers, nothing special. But tonight, small wounds can turn into infections fast. Trash piles, contaminated surfaces, rusted metal. Collapse is less about dramatic injuries and more about slow, preventable failures of the body. As darkness consumes the city, the cheap flashlight becomes your lifeline. You preserve battery by switching it off whenever possible. Light discipline matters. Light attracts attention, sometimes the wrong kind. Across the station, you hear raised voices. A small group arguing about where to go, what to believe. Rumors spread faster than facts in blackout conditions. EMP, cyber attack, government collapse. None of it helps you survive the night. Your priorities are simple. Stay warm, stay hydrated, stay aware, stay calm. You pull out the compact water filter again. A maintenance sink behind the station still has stagnant water in its basin. It tastes metallic, but filtration makes it drinkable. Most people would avoid it, holding out hope for clean supplies returning. But hope is not a strategy. As you sit on the cold concrete floor, you realize the psychological shift happening inside you. You are no longer waiting for normal to return. You are adapting. The world around you might be collapsing, but the kit in your hands creates a bubble of control. Small tools, cheap tools, but enough to bridge the gap between fear and action. In the distance, a siren wails once, then dies. A reminder, nobody is coming tonight. You settle in, preparing for the cold lessons of the next day. By the third day, denial fades from the streets. People stop assuming the lights will return any minute now. They start noticing the consequences. Empty refrigerators, drained phone batteries, spoiled food. Trash bags pile near doorways. Water pressure in most buildings drops to a trickle. This is when your cheap survival kit stops being an accessory and becomes a strategic asset. You move through the city with purpose now, collecting information through observation, not rumors. Your first tool of the day is the simple pencil and notebook. You track locations of water sources, potential shelters, blocked streets, and areas with rising tension. What looks like a childish habit becomes a mental map, one of the few advantages left when digital navigation disappears. Midday, you reach a public park. The pond is murky, coated with algae, but it's still water. Desperate groups are filling bottles directly from it. They don't filter, they don't boil. They drink because thirst makes people irrational. Within days, many will be incapacitated by waterborne illnesses. You kneel by the pond's edge and silently use your filter. The water is cold, metallic, but safe. The filter costs less than a meal, yet right now, it's worth more than anything in the pockets of the people around you. Further ahead, you find abandoned kiosks and shattered vending machines. Signs of early chaos. You don't scavenge mindlessly. Your kit limits what you take, small items only. Lighter, rope fragments, bandages, batteries. Cheap doesn't mean useless. Cheap means adaptable. As you walk through a silent residential block, tension thickens. Residents barricade doors. Windows stay shut. Fear has matured into suspicion. Strangers no longer ask questions. They watch you from behind curtains. You keep your whistle clipped to your jacket. Not for signaling distress, but for deterrence. A piercing sound can disrupt an escalating confrontation long enough to escape. Cheap plastic, but effective. By nightfall, clouds gather, promising rain. Exposure becomes a threat again. You pull the poncho over your shoulders and head toward an underpass for shelter. Day 3 teaches one undeniable truth. Scarcity isn't about what the world lacks. It's about what you failed to prepare before it vanished. 5 days into collapse, the city feels fundamentally different. Movement patterns change. The main roads are abandoned. Footpaths become the new arteries. People travel in small clusters or not at all. The quiet is heavier now. Not peaceful, but watchful. Your cheap survival kit is no longer a bag of objects. It has become a mindset. Every tool earns its place by proving its value again and again. Weather shifts in the morning. A cold front sweeps through, dropping temperatures suddenly. Those without layered clothing or wind protection struggle. Hypothermia doesn't need snow. It only needs wet fabric and cold air. Your poncho shields you from both. Today's priority is shelter. Temporary spots like bus stations aren't enough anymore. You need something more stable. You move through industrial zones, warehouses, loading docks, maintenance sheds. Most are stripped, but one small maintenance office still has intact windows and a heavy door. You test the handle. Jammed. This is where your small cutting tool becomes essential, not as a knife, but as a prying lever. It takes effort, slow and controlled, but eventually the swollen wooden frame gives way. Inside, you find what matters more than supplies. Insulation. Thick walls. A room with no visible mold. A corner where you can rest unseen. Next, you organize your space. You seal a broken window with a combination of plastic sheeting and duct tape from your kit. It's crude, but it blocks the draft. Cheap gear, yet it reshapes your environment. Hydration remains a constant struggle. You ration water, using the filter sparingly but consistently. Every sip feels like an investment in clarity. Dehydration doesn't hit instantly. It erodes you, blurs judgment, slows reaction time. By afternoon, distant shouting echoes across the industrial zone. You don't investigate. Curiosity gets people trapped. Discipline keeps you moving. As night falls again, you create a small reflective signal inside the room using your flashlight and a metal sheet, not to attract attention, but to bounce light into corners without wasting battery. Day 5 shows the dividing line between those who adapt and those who break. You're not stronger, you're not smarter. You're just prepared enough to survive another night. 7 days into collapse, your world shrinks to a few square kilometers. Survival becomes a cycle. Water, warmth, shelter, awareness. The city is no longer a place. It's a landscape of risks and opportunities shaped by silence. What started as a cheap survival kit has now evolved into a framework for stability. Every tool has proven its worth not by being expensive, but by being reliable. This morning, you inventory everything. You list what you've used, what you've lost, what needs replacement. The notebook pages are filled with tight handwriting, maps, observations, warnings. It becomes a substitute for digital memory. Shelter, though modest, has become routine. You reinforce the door with improvised wedges. You adjust the duct tape barrier to stop a new draft. You keep your gear packed at all times, ready to move if the situation shifts. Mobility is security. For food, you stay cautious. Scavenging isn't sustainable, but for the first week, it's unavoidable. You prioritize canned goods, sealed packages, anything untouched or overlooked. You avoid anything swollen, rusted, or without labeling. Collapse punishes impulsive decisions. You make one trip today, to the rooftop of a nearby building. Height gives information. From above, the city looks like a dead circuit board. Broken lines, still intersections, rusting vehicles. But you also see patterns, safe routes, blocked areas, new gathering points. Knowledge is a survival tool too. The water filter remains the heart of your kit. It allows independence. You refill again from a rooftop tank, taking time to let sediment settle before filtration. It's slow, but slow is better than sick. As the sun sets behind the skeletal skyline, you feel something unexpected, a fragile sense of control. Not safety, not comfort, just control. Enough to push you into the next cycle. Enough to keep you sharp, not desperate. 1 week in, the lesson is brutally clear. You didn't survive because you had the best gear. You survived because you had anything at all. A cheap survival kit won't save the world, but it will save the person who knows how to use it. And in collapse, that's enough to stay alive one more day.